The sun beat down on the Kenyan savannah like a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil, forging an oppressive heat that shimmered above the golden grass. Even the air felt heavy, laden with the dust of 1,000 hooves and the profound weight of grief. It was under this brutal, beautiful sky that Juma Baraka was laid to rest. A beloved conservationist, Juma had been a titan in this land, his life a testament to unwavering dedication to its wild heart. Now silence, broken only by the occasional sob and the whisper of the wind, replaced his vibrant presence. Alex Mbeki, his camera hanging uselessly at his side, felt the loss like a physical ache. Juma hadn't just been a colleague. He was a mentor, a brother. Alex, a wildlife photographer whose lens had often been guided by Juma's unparalleled knowledge, found his vision blurred by tears and memories. He saw Juma's infectious grin, heard his booming laugh echoing through the Mourning woodlands they'd explored together. Every shared adventure, every sunset captured, every quiet moment of camaraderie now felt like a cruel, fading dream. The world felt emptier without Juma's steady hand. A low, guttural roar ripped through the melancholic quiet. It was distant, but unmistakably the sound of a lion, resonating deep in the chest. A ripple of unease spread through the assembled mourners, hushed whispers of Simba passing between them. The local elders, their faces etched with ancient wisdom and sorrow, exchanged glances. Then, the grass began to part. A massive male lion, instantly recognizable as Simba, Juma's favorite and a legendary patriarch of the reserve, emerged with a deliberate, limping gait. His colossal form, usually a symbol of untamed power, now seemed tinged with an inexplicable sorrow. His head was held low and his eyes, amber pools reflecting the harsh sun, were fixed with an unnerving intensity on the rough-hewn wooden casket that held Juma. He moved with an almost ceremonial slowness, directly towards the gathering. Panic, a primal instinct, threatened to erupt. Children instinctively clutched their parents. A few women let out stifled gasps, ready to bolt. But Dr. Ben Khalel, the reserve director, a man whose presence usually commanded respect, now radiated an almost palpable calm. He raised a hand, not in warning but in an unspoken plea. "Wait," his voice, surprisingly steady, cut through the tension. "Just watch." Simba halted precisely 30 yards from the casket, his powerful body still. His gaze never wavered, locked onto the simple wooden box. An unprecedented silence fell over the savannah. The cicadas, usually a relentless chorus, went quiet. Even the birds perched in the thorny acacias ceased their calls. For 40 long, suspended minutes, the world held its breath. Simba stood motionless, a magnificent, wild king, paying tribute in a way no one had ever witnessed. Alex felt his camera, still untouched, grow heavy in his hand. His professional instinct warred with the impossible reality unfolding before him. This wasn't a territorial display. It wasn't curiosity. This was something else entirely. He struggled to comprehend. A wild predator, a creature of instinct, demonstrating what appeared to be profound respect, even grief. It defied every scientific principle he knew, every observation he'd ever made. Finally, as the pallbearers prepared to lower the casket into the dry earth, Simba shifted. He rose slowly, his immense frame unfolding, and watched, unmoving, as Juma's final resting place disappeared from view. Then, without a sound, he turned. With the same deliberate grace with which he had arrived, he melted back into the tall, golden grass, vanishing as silently as a ghost. That night, under a sky teeming with 1,000,000 indifferent stars, Alex sat with Dr. Kahlo by a crackling campfire. The director's face, usually so composed, was troubled. "He's been calling," Khalil said, his voice low, "near the village, every night for the past few days. Not hunting calls, not territorial. It's different, like he's searching for something." A chilling premonition snaked through Alex, bypassing his grief and settling cold in his gut. The surreal spectacle of the funeral combined with the Khalil's words and coalesced into a disturbing thought. "This isn't just grief, Ben," Alex said, the words barely a whisper. "This isn't natural. Something profoundly unnatural is at play." News of the mourning lion of the savannah spread with the speed of wildfire carried by cell phones and satellite dishes. The global media, ever hungry for the extraordinary, descended, transforming Juma's private tragedy into a worldwide phenomenon. Everyone wanted to know, how could a wild beast display such human emotion? Alex knew. He didn't have answers yet, but a fierce resolve ignited within him. Loyalty to Juma, to his memory, demanded that he seek the truth. He would document every moment, every anomaly, until the unfolding mystery yielded its secrets. His camera, once a tool for capturing beauty, would now become a weapon against the unknown. The first blush of dawn painted the eastern sky in hues of soft orange and bruised purple, a deceptive tranquility after the unsettling events of the previous day. Alex, drawn by an irresistible pull, made his way back to Juma's grave. And there, amidst the dew-kissed grass, was Simba. The massive lion was curled in a tight circle around the freshly turned earth, his immense body a silent, protective sentinel. His amber eyes, usually blazing with a predatory fire, held a profound, almost human sadness. It was an image that transcended all logic, a raw testament to a bond Alex was only just beginning to grasp. Alex, fueled by adrenaline and a growing sense of the surreal, instinctively raised his camera. Each click was a prayer, a desperate attempt to capture the impossible. He worked quickly, his movements precise, trying not to disturb the solemn tableau. Soon after Dr. Killel arrived, his vehicle kicking up a plume of dust. He stopped dead, his jaw slack. "This is unprecedented," Killel whispered, his voice thick with awe and disbelief, confirming Alex's own bewildered thoughts. For hours, Simba maintained his vigil. Occasionally, he would lower his magnificent head, pressing his thick, sun-streaked mane against the earth where Juma lay. It was a gesture of unfathomable grief, a silent communion that spoke volumes more than any human lament. The scene defied every known principle of wildlife behavior, every scientific understanding of the predator-prey dynamic. As the morning wore on, the first vanguard of wildlife biologists arrived, drawn by the initial reports. They set up remote cameras, their hushed debates echoing the universal question: was this true mourning or merely an instinctual anomaly, a territorial claim confused by a lingering scent? Alex knew, deep in his gut, it was far more than an anomaly. Later that afternoon, Juma's sister, Zola Baraka, approached Alex, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. She held out a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages softened and worn with time. "It's from when he was rehabilitating Simba," she explained, her voice fragile. "He kept it private, said it was for Simba." Alex took the notebook, his fingers tracing the embossed lion on its cover. Inside, Juma's familiar script filled the pages, detailing his nightly conversations with the injured lion cub he was nurturing back to health. Juma had poured out his heart to Simba, sharing his childhood memories, his wildest dreams for the conservation of this land, even his deepest regrets. A particular entry, dated years ago, caught Alex's eye. "He listened more intently than any human friend ever has," Juma had written, "and often he'd press his body against the fence where I sat, as if understanding every word." A shiver ran down Alex's spine. The next morning, Simba was gone. The grave was empty, but clear paw prints deeply pressed into the soft earth, along with faint body impressions, circled the mound, silent testimony to his unwavering presence through the night. Alex felt a pang of disappointment, a strange sense of abandonment. Then, hours later, Simba reappeared. This time he wasn't empty-pawed. He carried a freshly killed gazelle, its lifeless form a stark contrast to the vibrant life it once held. With a careful, almost tender movement, Simba laid the offering at the foot of Juma's grave. It was an undeniable act, a ritual that defied all scientific explanation, a testament to a connection that transcended the boundaries of species. Alex's hands trembled as he raised his camera, documenting this latest bewildering display. His mind reeled. This was not instinct. This was purpose. This was grief. The international media, now a swirling vortex of cameras and microphones, descended. But the village elders, their faces stern and unyielding, firmly denied them access to the sacred site. "This is not a spectacle," one of the elders declared, his voice carrying the weight of generations. "This is sacred." Then Aisha Adiambo, Juma's former fiancée, Ayayi, arrived, her face etched with a familiar sorrow. She watched the grave, her eyes distant. Juma always believed Simba understood him, she confirmed, her voice barely audible. Not just words, but his heart. He said Simba possessed a profound comprehension, an ancient wisdom. That night, under a moonless sky, Alex returned, armed with his night vision camera. He waited, his heart thrumming. Just after midnight, Simba reappeared. He circled the grave, then settled down. A sound unlike any Alex had ever heard began to emanate from the lion's throat. It was a unique, mournful vocalization, a deep, resonant cry that filled the silence with an aching sorrow. It was not a roar, not a purr, not a warning. It was a lament. Alex recorded every agonizing second. Later, specialists would confirm it was a previously unrecorded form of grieving, a sound that pushed the boundaries of what they understood about animal communication. 5 days. 5 extraordinary days Simba had maintained his silent, mournful vigil by Juma's grave, a constant, breathtaking presence that defied all natural laws. Then, just as mysteriously as he had appeared, he vanished. The morning sun, usually casting long shadows, now merely highlighted the empty space, the flattened grass where his magnificent body had rested. Alex felt a profound, chilling void. The absence wasn't just a lack of physical presence, it felt wrong, a discordant note in the symphony of the savannah. Simba's pattern had been established. He came, he mourned, he sometimes brought an offering, then he left, only to return. This sudden, complete disappearance, without even a discernible track leading away, went against everything they had observed. It ignited a deep unease within Alex. The small research team, now bolstered by additional personnel drawn by the global interest, immediately expanded the search. Drones with thermal cameras crisscrossed the sky, while ground trackers meticulously followed Simba's unique malformed paw prints, a distinguishing feature from an old injury. The tracks led them deep into the reserve's northern reaches, a rocky, protected territory rarely disturbed. But then, abruptly, inexplicably, the prints vanished. It was as if Simba had simply dematerialized, leaving no trace of his colossal form. Back at the makeshift camp, a palpable tension hung in the air. Theories buzzed like agitated bees. Had he finally moved on? His period of mourning concluded? Or had something far more sinister occurred? The unanswered questions gnawed at Alex, a growing premonition tightening its icy grip on his chest. That evening, Alex reviewed his night footage from Simba's last visit to the grave. He meticulously scrubbed through the hours, searching for anything, any subtle clue. And there it was. In the silent infrared world, Simba, usually so still during his vigil, showed unusual agitation. His massive head would snap up, his ears sharply pivoting north, his body tensing, before he settled back down, only to repeat the motion minutes later. He had detected something, Alex realized, something beyond human perception. Dar Khalil, looking over Alex's shoulder, confirmed his suspicion. He detected something we couldn't, Khalil remarked, his brow deeply furrowed. Their senses are far superior. A scent, a sound, a vibration, something spooked him. The next morning, the air in the camp was thick with unspoken anxiety. Dr. Khalil called an emergency meeting. His voice, usually calm and measured, was grim, laced with an undeniable urgency. Troubling intelligence, he began, sweeping his gaze across the assembled faces. Our scouts have reported poachers spotted near the northern boundary, moving deeper into the reserve than usual. A wave of dread washed over the group. Poaching was a constant threat, a brutal reality of their work. But the way Khalil delivered the news, the specific, heavy emphasis, suggested something far more insidious. He paused, then dropped the bombshell. They are specifically targeting Simba. The words hung in the air, cold and stark. Dr. Khalil explained, his voice strained. His story has gone viral internationally. The mourning lion is now a legend. Wealthy collectors are paying obscene sums for his hide and head as trophies. They want the mourning lion on their wall. And the ethical conflict was profound, sickening. The very fame that had championed conservation, that had drawn global attention to the plight of endangered species, had painted a target on Simba's magnificent back. Juma, who had dedicated his life to protecting these creatures, would be horrified. Alex felt a surge of cold fury, quickly followed by a deep moral conviction. Simba was not just an animal. He was a living testament to Juma's legacy, a symbol of a bond that transcended species. He wouldn't stand by and let him be hunted down. "I'm volunteering for the search team," Alex declared, his voice firm, his intention clear. "I need to document this, to protect him." Then Aisha Adiambo, Juma's former fiancée, stepped forward, her face set with a quiet determination. Her voice, though soft, carried an unshakable resolve. "Juma would never abandon Simba," she stated, her eyes meeting Alex's. "Neither will I." Derkilel nodded, his expression softening slightly. He turned to Kipchoge Onyango, one of the reserve's most experienced and trusted rangers. "Kipchoge," he said, his voice firm, "you are assigned to protect their team. Simba's life and theirs depend on it." The weight of their mission pressed down, heavy and terrifying. The first rays of dawn were still struggling to breach the horizon when Alex, Aisha, Kipchoge Onyango, and Jengo embarked on their grim patrol. The Northern Reserve, a vast expanse of thorny acacia, undulating grasslands, and rocky outcrops stretched endlessly before them, a brutal canvas under the awakening sky. Each step kicked up dust, a faint cloud trailing their determination. Kipchoge, the lead ranger, walked with a quiet authority, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon. He understood the immense challenge before them. "The reserve is 600 square miles," he cautioned, his voice low, gravelly, "like searching for a grain of sand in all of Kenya." His words, while meant to temper expectations, only amplified the daunting scale of their mission. Hours melted under the merciless sun. The air grew thick with heat, and the only sounds were their footsteps, the distant chirping of birds, and the incessant hum of insects. No signs of Simba, no signs of poachers. The silence, in its own way, was terrifying. Aisha, her face etched with worry, finally broke it. "Do you think we're too late?" she whispered, her voice fragile, reflecting the fear tightening in all their chests. Kipchoge, ever the pragmatist, shook his head. "Poachers work fast, yes, but Simba is smart. If they want him specifically for his legend, they must be careful. They will want him alive, intact. This gives us time. A little." His words were a small comfort, but the doubt lingered. It was mid-afternoon, the sun at its zenith, when they traversed a high ridge offering a panoramic view of a wide, dry riverbed snaking through the landscape. Kipchoge, who had been scanning with binoculars, suddenly froze. He raised a silent, urgent hand, his body tensing. "Vehicles," he mouthed, his eyes narrowed. "Not reserve vehicles, unauthorized." Alex quickly brought his own binoculars to his eyes. Below, moving slowly along the dry stream bed, were two rugged, custom-built trucks. Their tires were thick, designed for off-road traversal. The occupants, clearly visible even from this distance, scanned the landscape with a predatory intensity. Alex saw the glint of rifles, and then, unmistakable, the longer barrel of tranquilizer guns. These weren't opportunistic poachers, these were professionals. Kipchoge immediately radioed HQ, his voice clipped and urgent. The response was grim. The nearest ranger teams were still at least 20 minutes away, too far to intercept. They were alone. "There, in the ravine," Aisha hissed, grabbing Alex's arm, her voice a sharp intake of breath. She pointed, her finger trembling. Below, following the winding path of the dry riverbed, a familiar, limping silhouette moved with cautious grace. Simba. He was unaware, his magnificent head held high, walking directly towards the waiting trucks. "He doesn't know they're there," Alex whispered, his heart hammering against his ribs, a sickening mix of dread and helplessness washing over him. The urgency on the radio intensified, confirming their dire situation. The poachers were much, much closer than anticipated. Kipchoge, his face a mask of grim determination, frantically searched for a distraction strategy, his eyes darting across the landscape, weighing their options. Then a soft, almost innocuous pop echoed across the savannah, cutting through the stillness. It was the unmistakable sound of a tranquilizer gun firing. Alex watched, utterly horrified, as Simba, who had been moving with such defiant dignity, staggered. His powerful legs buckled, and his massive body slumped, collapsing among the jagged rocks of the ravine. "No," Aisha cried, a raw, guttural sound of anguish. She started forward, propelled by an instinctive desire to help, to intervene, but Kipchoge, his arm like an iron band, restrained her. "We cannot go down there," he barked, his voice laced with uncharacteristic fury. "Those men are armed and dangerous. They will kill us without a second thought." Alex, his gaze fixed on the motionless form of Simba, felt a cold knot of dread and determination solidify within him. The image of Juma, his friend, flashed in his mind. Juma would never abandon Simba. An agonizing, split-second decision crystallized. He knew the personal risk was immense, potentially suicidal, but he also knew what Juma would have done. "I'm going to circle around," Alex stated, his voice tight with resolve. "Get closer. To document. To distract." There was no turning back. We've been on the edge of our seats, but what happens next will redefine everything you thought you knew about courage and the dark underbelly of the wild. If you're as gripped by this unfolding conspiracy as I am, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe so you don't miss a single heart-stopping revelation. Alex didn't hesitate. He tore off his bright, colorful outer shirt, leaving only a muted khaki beneath. Aisha, her face grim with a terrifying efficiency, unscrewed her water bottle and poured its contents liberally over their remaining clothes. "Might confuse tracking dogs," she muttered, the grim implication hanging heavy in the air. Django, ever observant, pointed to a narrow hidden game trail, almost invisible among the dense undergrowth. "This path will keep you hidden longer, Bwana Alex," he instructed, his voice low and urgent. "Move only when they look away." With a nod, Alex began his descent. The trail was steep, perilous, loose stones skittering beneath his worn boots. His heart hammered a frantic rhythm against his ribs, a drumbeat of pure adrenaline. The triumphant, guttural voices of the poachers, now clearer, carried on the breeze, sickeningly close. He clutched his camera like a lifeline, its cold weight a strange comfort. He reached the bottom, moving low, weaving through the thickets until he found a cluster of large boulders offering a precarious vantage point. Peering through a gap, a scene of unimaginable horror unfolded. Two men, their faces hardened by greed and violence, stood over Simba's motionless body. One held a hunting knife, its blade glinting dully in the fading light. The other brandished a saw. They were preparing for dismemberment, ready to reduce the majestic lion to mere trophies. A wave of visceral fury, hot and suffocating, made it hard to breathe. Alex felt the bile rise in his throat, a primal scream threatening to erupt. But Juma's face, Simba's mournful eyes flashed in his mind, stealing his resolve. He forced himself to focus, his hands, despite their tremor, steadying the camera. Click, click. He zoomed in, capturing their faces, the distinct markings on their vehicles, the license plates, every incriminating detail that could later serve as evidence. This wasn't just about saving Simba, it was about exposing the rot. Then a sudden chilling shadow fell over him. The shift in light was imperceptible to the poachers below, but Alex's instincts screamed. He turned, his breath catching in his throat. He was staring up into the cold black barrel of a rifle, held steady by a fourth poacher, previously unseen, who had silently flanked their position. "Give me that camera," the man snarled, his eyes glinting with menace. Time slowed to a crawl. Alex's mind raced, calculating his impossible odds. The poacher's finger, thick and calloused, began to tighten on the trigger. This was it. Suddenly, a piercing whistle, sharp and clear, cut through the air, echoing off the ravine walls. The poacher, momentarily startled, reflexively turned his head towards the sound. It was all the opening Alex needed. He seized the moment, diving with desperate force behind a larger boulder, the sound of his impact swallowed by the sudden eruption of gunfire. Gunshots, shouts in multiple languages. The ravine erupted in a cacophony of chaos. Alex peered out cautiously. Rangers emerging from hidden positions in a perfectly executed pincer movement swarmed the ravine. Kipchoge and Django, having anticipated the escape, had orchestrated the ambush. Two poachers immediately threw down their weapons, hands raised in surrender. The third, a wild desperation in his eyes, fired wildly into the approaching rangers before being subdued. The fourth, the one who had almost caught Alex, scrambled frantically, attempting to escape up the steep side of the ravine. But Kipchoge and Django, true to their plan, were already there. They cut off his retreat, a blur of motion and practiced efficiency. Within minutes, all four poachers were in custody, bound and disarmed, their reign of terror brought to a swift, brutal end. Alex emerged, shaken but unharmed, his camera still recording. He rushed towards Simba, his heart aching with concern. Dr. Kilo, who had arrived with the ranger teams, was already kneeling beside the magnificent lion, administering an antidote. "He's stable," Kilo said, looking up at Alex, a weary relief in his eyes. "But the dose was heavy. He'll need careful monitoring." Simba, still deeply unconscious, was carefully loaded into a specialized transport vehicle. Aisha, her face pale but resolute, climbed in beside him. Throughout the tense journey back to the rehabilitation center, she rode with him, her hand gently resting on his powerful flank, monitoring his shallow, labored breathing. The immediate danger had passed, but the shadows of the conspiracy still lingered, threatening to darken their world. For 3 harrowing days, Simba recuperated at the rehabilitation center, partially sedated, his massive body healing under the watchful eyes of the veterinary team. Alex's footage, raw and undeniably damning, proved crucial. It wasn't just evidence. It was irrefutable proof, leading directly to the swift prosecution of the captured poachers. The weight of their crimes, compounded by the global outrage, ensured they would face severe consequences. Outside the reserve gates, a swarm of international news crews besieged the perimeter, their hunger for the story insatiable. However, Dr. Khalil and the management maintained a strict information policy, shielding Simba from further sensationalism and protecting the integrity of the ongoing investigation into the poaching ring. Yet the incident, amplified by Simba's legendary status, galvanized conservation organizations worldwide, leveraging the near tragedy to highlight the relentless threats faced by wildlife and the urgent need for stronger anti-poaching measures. On the fourth morning, the sedation was cautiously reduced. Simba's amber eyes, once clouded, slowly opened, a flicker of recognition for the familiar surroundings of his recovery pen. He stirred, testing his immense strength. Aisha, who had faithfully continued Juma's ritual, sat just outside Simba's enclosure, her voice a low murmur as she read from Juma's private journals. Simba's ears swiveled towards her, and in that profound, silent moment, a tangible understanding passed between them, a thread of connection that transcended words. Later that day, Simba, unsteady but determined, walked through an open gate, heading towards a larger transitional enclosure. It was a clear signal, a silent declaration of his readiness to return to the wild, to reclaim his kingdom. 2 weeks later, fully recovered and now fitted with a state-of-the-art tracking collar, Simba was released back into his vast territory. The sight of him, free and magnificent, disappearing into the golden grass, brought tears to the eyes of all who witnessed it. The months that followed brought remarkable revelations from the tracking data. While Simba successfully reintegrated with his pride, asserting his dominance and continuing his life as a wild lion, he still made regular, if less frequent, visits to Juma's grave. These were not random wanderings, they were deliberate pilgrimages. Scientific papers began to emerge, challenging fundamental assumptions about animal cognition and emotional capacity, spurred by Simba's unprecedented gratitude and loyalty. His story forced a reevaluation of the complex inner lives of animals. 1 year after the funeral, at a quiet memorial held for Juma, Simba appeared. Not at the grave itself, but at the perimeter of the clearing, a watchful, dignified presence. He remained a living symbol, a silent testament to an extraordinary, inexplicable bond that defied rational explanation. But for Alex, the truth was far more unsettling. He realized the wealthy collectors mentioned by Dr. Kilo were more than just trophy hunters. The intense global interest in Simba's unique intelligence, his profound empathy, and his unprecedented gratitude had made him a target for a far more insidious black market. This wasn't just about a trophy, it was about the exploitation of unique animal consciousness itself. The poachers were merely the foot soldiers for a shadowy network of powerful unethical corporations or individuals, perhaps even state-sponsored, seeking to harvest genetic material or neural data from a creature that defied natural laws. This was a clandestine pursuit of bioengineering or hidden knowledge, hinting at a larger, darker, and more classified incident than anyone imagined. The implication chilled Alex to the bone. Juma hadn't just been protecting wildlife, he had been protecting a secret. Alex reflected on the journey, the terror, the wonder. Simba continues Juma's work, he mused, looking out at the endless savanna. A living symbol, the tracking data shows he still returns to the grave each year, as if guided by an internal calendar we cannot fathom. A silent testament to a connection that runs deeper than science currently comprehends, and a chilling reminder of the dark forces willing to exploit it. The image is seared into my memory, an indelible truth against the harsh light of the Kenyan sun. A massive male lion, Simba, emerging from the tall grass, walking deliberately towards Juma Baraka's funeral gathering. Panic rippled through the mourners, but Simba stopped precisely 30 yards away, his amber eyes fixed with unnerving intensity on the casket. It was a sight that transcended all understanding, triggering a cascade of events that forever altered my perception of the natural world and the darkness lurking within humanity. What began as an impossible display of grief soon unraveled into a chilling discovery. Juma's journals revealed a profound bond, a two-way connection dismissed by science but undeniable to those who witnessed it. This unique, almost sentient loyalty, coupled with Simba's profound empathy, marked him for exploitation. The poachers were merely the tip of a sinister iceberg, a shadowy network pursuing not just trophies, but the very essence of unique animal consciousness. My camera, meant to capture beauty, became a weapon against a conspiracy far more terrifying than I could have imagined. Even now, Simba, a living symbol of Juma's enduring legacy, returns to the grave each year, a silent testament to a connection that runs deeper than science comprehends. But for me, the echoes of that distant roar still carry a chilling reminder. The natural world holds wonders we are only beginning to grasp, and dark forces are willing to exploit them, revealing a classified incident far grander and more terrifying than anyone can imagine.